Hello, everyone, and welcome to the fourth session in American English Live Teacher Development Series 8. My name is Lauren, and I'll be with you today along with my colleague behind the scenes, Amanda, who will be serving as moderator to help answer your questions and respond to your comments during the session. Today, our host, Kate, will be talking with our presenter, Stephanie Owens Upadhyay, about no prep grammar activities that are both engaging and dynamic. So let's get started.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another wonderful and exciting session of American English Live Teacher Development. We're so excited to have you all here with us today, as always, and we're looking forward to learning and sharing with you about no prep communicative grammar activities. As Lauren said, I'm Kate, and I'm super excited to be here today. Let's begin with these great comments from participants during our last webinar. Jose Luis said, "Greetings from Bolivia. Participating in the AE Live webinar series is very productive. They are quite relevant and ready to apply to real situations." Wonderful. Thank you, Jose Luis, for that great comment. And Nick says, "This webinar series is awesome. You are amazing teachers and speakers. This is the best webinar I've ever attended. I'm so happy I've discovered you." And Nick, we're so happy to have you and all of our wonderful audience members here with us too. And Julie M says, "Thank you so much. I learned so much." Great. Thank you very much for that great comment. We love to see our teacher participants actively engaged in professional development, and we encourage you to engage with our community virtually. We love that you are a global teaching force attending from around the world, and we feel very connected to you in the chat box and through our social media channels. So please continue to participate and share your photos and comments from AE Live sessions excuse me, by emailing them to americanenglishwebinars@fhi360.org or by sharing them here in the chat or on social media. If you share on social media, make sure to tag us at American English for Educators, and we hope to share one of your comments or photos in the next session. Today is our fourth session in American English Live Teacher Development Series 8. So far, we've explored sessions related to the theme of teaching reading, and now we'll explore the theme of communicative language teaching, fun and varied approaches for common grammar topics. We hope you're able to use the practical ideas we share. Have you had a favorite session so far? Please let us know in the chat box. So here's a little bit about what to expect today. Each session is about 60 minutes long and is often related to an online professional English network, open, massive open online course. That's our new name and branding. Check out the video on our page about the new name. The presenter will present the material, and I, as your host, will ask questions and make comments as well. But we really hope to hear from you, our audience, so that we can address your ideas and experiences. Please do share your thoughts using the comments features or chat box. When our session comes to a close in about an hour, you'll have an opportunity to receive a digital badge for your participation. At the end of the session, we'll share a link in the comments and at the top of this post. Click on that link and complete a short quiz about today's session. You must answer 2 out of 3 multiple choice questions correctly, and once you've successfully done so, you should expect to receive your digital badge via email within about a week. And we're excited to announce the opening of another wonderful open or online professional English network massive open online course. Join this free MOOC to develop a working understanding of culture and explore tools for analyzing, understanding, and negotiating cultural differences. In this course, you will prepare to implement culture and critical thinking lessons by examining relevant example activities and considering options for evaluating student progress in these areas. This course is open through August 24th, 2020, so please enroll today, and we have provided the link for you there. And now for today's session, no prep communicative grammar activities. As students become aware of a grammatical structure's form and meaning, it is important to facilitate opportunities for them to use the target language in communicative settings. In this session, we will examine how to create opportunities for students to personalize the content by engaging in dynamic communicative grammar activities. And we'll explore ready-to-use activities for common grammar points at each proficiency level, beginner, intermediate, and advanced. And now we're pleased to introduce our presenter, Stephanie Owens Upadhyay. Stephanie has over 10 years of TESOL experience, and she began her career as a Fulbright English teaching assistant in Temuco, Chile. She has since taught and learned in Turkey, India, and the United States. In her recent position as Director of Teacher Training and Academic Support at ELS, she provided professional development for teachers and directors and led curriculum development and training projects. She's currently an English language specialist working with teachers in Ukraine. Her professional interests include metacognition, student motivation, and increasing rigor in the classroom. Originally from Connecticut in the United States, Stephanie holds a CELTA and a master's degree in TESOL from Adelphi University. Welcome, Stephanie. We're so happy to have you here with us today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. And thanks to everyone for attending. This is all about no prep communicative grammar activities. So let's start with the objectives of the session. You'll be able to identify features of the Learn framework and later use those to reflect on your own activities. And you'll also learn 4 grammar-focused activities that you can use in your own classroom as early as tomorrow. So let's get started. And our session plan, we'll talk about what makes learning memorable. We'll review the Learn framework that I mentioned. And we'll define no prep versus no plan. So this beginning part of the session will lay groundwork, and then we'll move on to the practical portion and look at activities. So 1 for reported speech, 2 for passive voice, and 1 for superlatives. And then we'll have a quick recap. So our first thing to consider is what makes learning memorable. So here's a question for all of the participants. What good memories of language learning do you have? So this could be specific activities that helped you remember concepts, vocabulary, grammar rules, anything memorable, but hopefully a good memory.
All right, yeah, we'd love to hear from you, everybody. What good memories of language learning do you have? Please let us know in the chat or the comments. So maybe think about activities that helped you remember concepts, vocabulary, or rules. I remember when I was learning Spanish that my Spanish teacher had us sing a lot of fun songs, and I really enjoyed that and still remember most of those songs today. So that was something that was really memorable for me and helped me to learn. What about you? What sort of activities were memorable for you and helped you? Let's see. Real life, something to do with real life events and activities from Rescar. Great. Singing the grammar rules from Esra. Learning with real situations from Areli. Interaction with classmates. Board races for learning vocabulary from Abdelhadi. Very nice. And repeating tongue twisters and singing songs from Alba Maria. So thank you for those great responses, everybody.
Yes, thank you for sharing your learning experiences. I'm going to talk about 3 of mine that are very sticky or memorable. And as you listen, try to think about what made them so memorable. So this first one is from when I was in 2nd grade. So that was more than 30 years ago. The teacher on one day took a big bucket of colored toothpicks, like what you see in the picture, and she just poured them all on the floor, which was wild. And then in groups, we had to collect 2 colors, so maybe all the blue toothpicks and all the orange toothpicks. And then at our desks, we divided our toothpicks into many piles of 100. And so that was help with counting practice. But as you can tell, since it was 30 years ago, I still remember it. Here's another one. Not about counting. This one is about vocabulary. So I had read the book, The Witches, in English, and I'd also seen the movie. And then when I was studying Spanish, I reread the book. So I learned words in Spanish for things like claws, wigs, masks, and I'll always remember, and it really helped that I could also look at the pictures while I read. And our third one is another example about Spanish from when I was in university. And so many of you surely know that in Spanish you have masculine nouns and feminine nouns. And for non-native speakers, it's a big challenge to remember which is which. And when I was learning, everyone just said, you just have to know, you just have to memorize. And I was not good at it. So one day in class, our teacher hung posters of common suffixes or like endings of nouns all around the room. And we walked around and we added words that had those endings. Then we separated them into masculine and feminine, commonly masculine and feminine endings. So it helped us create rules for identifying the gender of nouns. Not perfect at it, but I understand it much more, and it was a great light bulb moment for me. So those are 3 of my learning experiences. What do you think made these so memorable?
Yeah, what do you think? We've heard a little bit about your comments sort of related to this in the previous question, but what do you think? What made these 3 learning experiences memorable that Stephanie has shared with us from her time when she was very young and then when she was a little bit older, all the way through she was a little bit older in university? So let's say they're all interesting, great, they're enjoyable, unusual and fun from Micah. Let's see, they're engaging from Romulan. Personal interaction rather than just forced memory or rote memorization activities. Great. Let's see. Involvement of learners in the experience from Nahir. And from Pat, they were engaging and interactive. And the context had a lot to do with it, was from Hakeem. So wonderful responses, everybody. Thank you for sharing.
Yes, those are excellent. And I'm just going to sum up what you have already said. So I think you've guessed everything that I have written down. But let's take a look. So that toothpick one was a very new experience. When does a teacher make a mess in your classroom on purpose? Like everyone said, it was enjoyable. And we also had a chance to repeat because we had so many toothpicks. We made multiple piles. For the book, that was linked to my prior knowledge. I already had an understanding of what happened. It was a book I liked, so it was enjoyable. And I was able to learn the vocabulary because I knew it in English, but also the pictures helped too. And the last one, again, a novel experience for me, a new way to interact. It linked to this prior concept I knew about, but didn't have a good grasp on. And it helped me connect future vocab words to rules, know how to use them. But I do really like what everyone said, really emphasize in interaction or interactive and memorable activities. So I'd like to introduce an acronym to help you remember some of these characteristics that you mentioned that we just saw. It's called the LEARN framework, which is an acronym for teachers. Let's see what each letter stands for. The first one is link, and this is making a connection to previous knowledge, personal experience. So the emphasis here is it's personal. And a lot of times in lessons, we call this activating schemata, and it can come at the beginning. But we can also use this personalization or linking in the communicative part of our lesson plans. So getting students to think of a time when they heard this, reflect I already know, or create their own examples, remember because they have a place in their brain to store the information. So let's look at what E stands for. As many of you said, it's enjoy or enjoyable emotions. And I want to point out that students do not have to everything, which could be a challenge people's moods and interests can change, but where other positive emotions that we call on. So that might be interesting or curiosity. If you're not interested in the topic, if you have some questions to investigate, that might make you curious. Humor, fun, and confidence. So by confidence, I don't mean that everything has to be easy, rather that students are confident in what they need to do with the language, confident you will support them and give them the tools they need to participate in the activity. And they'll be able to succeed in the end, even if they struggle and things are difficult a little bit at the beginning. So we can also call that like satisfaction. And relevance helps them understand how the concepts will be useful in their life. And let's look at letter A. So A is for anchor. And this will sound similar to linking, but I want to emphasize that this one isn't about your personal ideas or experience, but rather a way of connecting two pieces of information or connecting two ideas. So right now, we're anchoring the concept of memorable activities with this framework, Learn. So think of it as a way to help students organize their thoughts and make connections between ideas that they've learned. So this could be connecting idea with a picture or with a poster or chart, memory devices like an acronym or a song or a rhyme, worksheets, analyzing the relationship between L1 and L2, and also things like movement, engaging multiple senses like someone mentioned, and appealing to multiple learning styles. So let's look at letter R. So I combined repeat and reflect. So repeat could be having a chance to do things multiple times in the same class, as well as revisiting the concepts over a longer period of time. And then reflect gives students a chance to think about their learning, think about how they're doing, and what they need to practice more, how it relates to what they learned previously. And of course, we also have quizzes and review games as part of repeat and reflect. And our last letter is N for novelty. So a lot of times the controlled practice portion of our lesson can all blur together. Maybe we always do worksheets, or we always look in the book, or even we do them on a computer game. So that's why trying new techniques, new ways of grouping your students, and different styles of practice can help students remember. And even using different spaces in your classroom can help. So maybe sometimes you sit in a circle and now we can walk around in a circle, or sit on the floor, or just do something unexpected with what we already have. So let's check one of these ideas that often gets a little confusing. So I mentioned linking is all about personalization, prior knowledge, and your own experience, whereas anchoring is summarizing learning and connecting information. So let's see an example, and I'll give you a chance to practice. So I'll show you two examples of classroom activities. Which one uses linking, remember personalization, and which one uses anchoring, organizing our information. So activity number one, as a class, students and teacher make a poster to compare the simple past and the past continuous. So maybe the students are calling out and the teacher is writing down and designing this information. What do you think?
Yeah, what do you think, everybody? As a class, students and teacher make a poster. So do you think this is linking or anchoring? What would you categorize this as based on the definitions that Stephanie shared with us before? What do you think? Is it linking or anchoring? Let's see. We see someone saying anchoring. Alba says anchoring. Mumita, Nahir, Micah, Romalyn. Oh, Romalyn says linking. Amy King says anchoring. And Egresados says, I think that's a company, says anchoring. Yeah, lots of people are saying anchoring, a few people saying linking. What do you think, Stephanie?
So I would say that this one is anchoring. It might be something students knew, but we're connecting like meaning and rules and use all together and organizing it in a way that we can reference later. So let's look at another example, and I think the contrast will really help. So the activity is students find pictures on their phone. Then they write captions to describe them using the simple past and the past continuous. So here's my example with a picture of my brother and my nephew. We were playing outside when the ice cream truck came. They were eating ice cream when I took the picture. So is this one linking or anchoring?
What do you think, everybody? Would you consider this linking or anchoring with this activity? What do you think? All right, Duha says linking, Marwa as well. Let's see, Akash. Victoria says linking. Graciela says linking. Alba, very nice. So what do you think, Stephanie? Are they correct?
Great. So yes, this one is linking. We're really tying it to our personal examples or experience as opposed to just organizing the information. Okay, so that's the Learn framework. And now I'll just recap and reconnect them to the examples from my stories. So our toothpick activity had a lot of enjoyment because it was, and novelty because it was new and unexpected. It anchored to a concept we already knew. So just a way of counting. We already knew how to count. We just had a chance to repeat and practice. The rereading was just about all of them except for novelty. And then the posters were really great because it linked to things we already knew about, words that we already knew, but it anchored because it helped us analyze and provide rules. And it was enjoyable and new. Maybe not for you, your students, maybe they do gallery walks and write on posters and interact a lot, but for me it was really new and interesting.
Nice. We have a great question from Grace who says that she loves this acronym and wants to know, is it possible to use all of these components in one lesson?
I think it's possible. We might see an example of that. And what I really want to point out is that looking at these can help you look at activities that you're going to do or that you did in class and think, do I need to add a small thing do my students need to repeat more? Is that something I should give them a chance to do? So this is, you can do that. You can choose just some of them, or you could use some of them, do the activity, and then think about, does this need other pieces of the framework? Great question, thank you. And so just one more quick concept to define before we get into our 4 activities. What do we mean by no prep? I'm sure that was an attractive piece of the title that drew you to this session. So when I say no prep, no preparation. I'm really talking about all of those small things that you need to do to get ready for class, such as photocopying, printing, cutting, pasting, designing worksheets, designing PowerPoint. So as long as you have the idea ready, the activity in your mind, you don't need to do any other teacher prep and creating stuff. Also, no prep will lean on materials that are already available in a classroom, like a pen and paper or whiteboard, and things that students can generate. So they'll make the examples, they'll make the materials. We don't need a worksheet. And we will also, like I already mentioned, pen, paper, maybe a phone for some activities, but ultimately it's something we can just do. So that doesn't mean we don't need a plan. So we still need a thoughtful plan, and hopefully the way these activities are presented will show you that. So a thoughtful plan can include deliberate groupings and the way you match students up, really clear instructions in different stages, models and examples. So this is something you might think about before class, although it's something you could do during class. And you've thought about how students will share their responses and listen to each other. And lastly, a great thing about a thoughtful plan is that if you've already thought about it, you can do it at any point during a lesson. So if things are going quickly, if students already understand the grammar topic, it's familiar, you can jump right into this part of the activity without running to a copy machine or having to print anything. So that's what you can expect from No Prep, and I think we're ready for some activities. So we'll talk about 4 activities, starting with one for advanced level grammar. And this activity helps students practice reported speech. So here's a general overview. So we'll focus on reported speech, but we can also use mixed verb tenses since this is an advanced class. Our vocab will be about celebrities. All we need is a whiteboard, and students are going to get up and walk around and talk to each other. So that's the main interaction. And the time, this is just an estimate, but it can take a good amount of your class time, about a half an hour. So let's see what it looks like in class. So first, we'll ask students to brainstorm a well-known person, well-known people, or a well-known event. So here's my list. It can be Beyonce, Ronaldo, Michael Jordan, Taylor Swift, anyone the students know. And then, as the teacher, I'm going to invent some information and share it with the students. So I might say something like, oh, I heard that Taylor Swift bought a castle in Scotland. I also heard that she's going to run for president in 2024. Can you believe that? And you know what else? Taylor Swift eats 18 avocados a day. So again, none of this is true. I invented the information. I'm going to ask students to reflect on it. So I'll say, what do you think about this information? Is it shocking or exciting? Where did you hear it? From Taylor Swift herself, from her official Instagram, or from someone who does not know Taylor Swift? Would you repeat this and tell someone else? And is it true? So once they have the sense that this information is not true, we can define the term rumor. So widely shared story or information about a person that really has no source or confirmation. And a rumor mill is a place that generates a lot of rumors. So maybe tabloids, just all of the internet, a high school cafeteria, and for this activity, our classroom. So our students will have a chance to start some rumors. And they're going to write 3 rumors about celebrities. Now, one thing I want to point out, some of you might have concerns about classroom management and making sure this activity is appropriate. So ideas for that, stick to celebrities. We're not going to talk about classmates. We're not going to talk about the teacher or members of our school. You can also define the topics if you're worried that things might get too scandalous. So you can say, you can talk about a celebrity's salary and how much money they make or what they buy. You can talk about how they act at work, weird habits or hobbies, like how many avocados they eat a day, friendships. And if you want to limit further, you can say, do not talk about romantic relationships and do not use rude language. Hopefully you won't have to do that, and you'll get a sense of how much direction your students need. For the language part, we can just encourage students when they create their 3 rumors to use a mix of verb tenses. So my examples used past simple, future with going to, and simple present. So that will help really push our use of reported speech. So the next step is students will stand up and exchange rumors. So they need to tell at least 5 people the rumors that they wrote. They also have to repeat a rumor, and they should be listening and really paying attention because they need to remember some of the other rumors. So you can make these numbers higher or lower depending on your students. So we see here students whispering about how many planes Beyonce owns. She owns 3 planes. And now someone tells another student this same thing. Right now, we're not using reported speech. We're repeating the rumor exactly. So now it'll be time to report. Our classroom has been a rumor mill, and now we give students a chance to write down and use the target language of reported speech. So let's see what we can have them do with that. So in groups or pairs, students make a list of the rumors they heard. You can introduce these sentence frames like I heard that, or Kate told me, or someone told me. And an idiomatic one, if you want to teach them, is a little bird told me. And that's one we use when we don't want to say who told us. And then I would also model how it will look in reported speech. So if you remember the original sentences about Taylor Swift, it will change from bought to I heard that Taylor Swift had bought. Was going to, and instead of she eats, oh, I heard that she ate 18 avocados a day. So at this stage, we're assuming students are familiar with reported speech, and this is a chance to really practice it. So once students have written down the rumors, you can check for accuracy, as well as have them do a little bit more with recapping what they heard. So some options that you can choose from or mix. A lot of times in our textbook, there's a big chart of all the verb tenses and how they convert in reported speech. So students can use that to check their answers with your help. You can also just do a really quick thing like, hey, everyone, what was the craziest rumor you heard? You can introduce some critical thinking and have students do research to disprove the rumors. Or you can have, as an extension, in groups or for homework, students speak or write about the negative effects of rumors. So that's our activity. And now I will have a question for you. Let's analyze this activity using the LEARN framework. So which parts
before we do that question, we have some really nice questions and comments from our participants, and then everybody can go ahead and answer this question as we share some of those. So let's see, a lot of people are saying that they love this activity, very authentic. Students will be interested in learning when we talk about celebrities. And Mathilde mentioned how we need to be careful about some of those issues that you mentioned in the rules category. And just a reminder that you're welcome to set any type of rule that you might want to set for this kind of activity. Just talking about celebrities, definitely not anyone that somebody actually knows, or people in the classroom, or maybe animals. And one other question from Pat was, do the tenses need to be taught before? I think you mentioned this, Stephanie, but if you could just touch on that a bit.
So this is reported speech usually shows up in advanced levels. So students should have an understanding of the basic tenses. So we're assuming that they know them, and this is a chance just to remind them to make your sentences a little bit different. And that's why my examples had a mix of verb tenses.
Great. All right, and in terms of which parts of LEARN are applied, it looks like we have lots of great responses. So some people are saying all of them. Asran says enjoy, anchor, repeat, and reflect, and maybe novelty as well. Repeat and reflect from Akash. A lot of people saying repeat and reflect. Juha says all of them. Yeah, so those are some of the great responses. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. And again, the parts of the framework will depend on how you chose to set up the activity. So let's look, this is how I think of it. So it links because it links to topics we're interested, and it's enjoyable because it links to people we're familiar with, people we want to talk about. It's probably also new because we don't encourage our students to spread rumors. For anchoring, this can be a piece if we ask students to connect their examples to the chart that is probably in our textbooks. And maybe I want to adjust this so that I make students repeat the reported speech part of the rumor a lot more. So again, the way I presented it, I think these three are the most prevalent parts of the framework, but I can make small changes to incorporate anchor and repeat and reflect. So thank you guys. Let's look at some activities for the intermediate level. So I chose passive voice for this because I've always found it a challenge to teach in a way that's authentic, but doesn't turn into a huge vocabulary lesson. So here's our first activity. It's called Where Was It Made? And in addition to passive voice, we're going to use vocab for clothing, classroom items, and countries. And all we need is a whiteboard, but you have the option to bring sticky notes or a world map just to extend the activity. And this could be a shorter, almost warm-up style, or you can make it a little bit longer. So here's how to set it up. The first one is provide a model for students. So good morning, class. Today I'm going to tell you about my outfit. My dress was made in Turkey. My earrings were made in Australia, and my shoes were made in China. And then for the next step, I'll have students work in small groups to help look at like their clothes and their school supplies to see where they were made. And then everyone has to write 5 sentences following the model on the board. So where their pencil was made or where their shoes were made. So once everyone wrote that down, paying close attention to subject-verb agreement, we'll go to the next step. And this is just reporting and sharing your list. So my shirt was made in Vietnam, my shoes were made in Russia. And what's really important here is while everyone is reading their list, we need a reason for everyone else to pay attention. So here are a few options for that. You can just have students listen and tally, and we'll compare our counts. You can also, if you chose to bring a map or you have a map in your classroom, you can have students mark a little X every time they hear a place. Or you can almost make an infographic with Post-it notes and just put them on the board or on a poster. And it's up to you if you want your students to just count them or also take notes and write the name of the item. So this one says shoes on the Post-it note. So a lot of ways to have students listen to each other. And here are some ways you can recap the activity. So just ask students to repeat what they remember. Oh, Ahmed's shirt was made in Vietnam. Kate's shoes were made in Italy, and I can just repeat to my group or to the whole class. We can also play a memory game. So if you use the Post-it notes with the name written, I can return this item to its owner if I remember and repeat the sentence. And we can also just look at like our counts and our tallies and talk about what does this mean? What conclusions can we draw from our list? So again, you can do one of these or do a combination of them. And I bet you can guess our next question. So for this activity, which parts of learn are applied?
What do you think, everybody? Which parts of the Learn framework are applied to this activity? We would love to hear from you. Link, enjoy, anchor, repeat, and reflect, or novelty, or all of them, or some of them. What do you think? Let's see. We're seeing a lot of people say enjoy. Great. Let's see. Link and enjoy from Gio. All of them from Maria. Anchor, enjoy, and link from Ingrid. And Enas says repeat and reflect. Linking, repeating, reflecting from Charlene. Like, enjoy, anchor from Miriam. So thanks for those responses, everybody. Thank you for participating.
Great. Thank you. And I'll share what I think about the way I've done this in the past. So I kind of think it's all of them. We are linking the concept of passive voice to the things that we actually have. So my personal experience, if you use the map option, that can also help anchor. And we have a lot of repeating because students keep saying their sentences. So it's a nice way to really drill that accuracy. All right. And so let's talk about another activity for the passive voice. This one is called Fun Facts. And we're going to get students to share interesting facts about their country using the passive voice. And for this one, you just need a whiteboard and some examples. And once again, we'll have our students stand up and mingle and talk to each other. So what do students have to do? Well, first, let's talk about what the teacher has to do. So make a list of verbs commonly used to describe a country in the passive voice. So this is my list, but you can add or subtract words. And once you have the list and make sure students know what the words mean, you can have them do step 2, which is just converting the words to the past participle. So this helps ensure that they're confident that they're using the right form of the verb. And then you share an example. So these are my examples about my hometown. So every year, a new Christmas stamp is designed for the post office. The oldest house in my town was built in 1730. So we have a couple of examples. Again, this one we're assuming students are more familiar with the passive voice. So now what do they have to do? So the students use the word bank of verbs to write 3 to 5 fun facts about their town or their country. And while you're writing, while the students are writing, you can monitor and walk around the room to see if everyone is on the right track. These are fun facts that I've learned from my students in doing this activity. So I always appreciate that. Once students have their list written down, especially if you have a chance to check it, students will stand up and mingle and have to talk to at least 3 other people. Again, you can do more or less to learn about their country. And step 6 has several options once again for recapping. So we can have students make a chart like we see in the picture to reflect on new things they learned or something they heard again and they already knew. They can just vote, hey, what country is the most interesting? Where would you like to visit? What would you like to learn more about? Or they could take the fun facts and make it into a project like a PowerPoint slide or a short video. And so let's look at how we applied the LEARN framework. So we link to their knowledge of their home, country, or town. It's enjoyable because we're learning new things from our classmates and moving around. They're repeating a lot and hearing a lot of examples. And this is probably a new way to learn the passive voice that isn't converting an active sentence to a passive sentence. So let's give you a chance to participate in the activity. What fun facts would you like to share about your country? And you can use the passive voice.
All right, everybody, we'd love to hear from you about your countries. What fun facts would you like to share? And try to use the passive voice like Stephanie gave us the example of previously. So what do you think? Let's hear about it. And we're seeing lots of people sharing how that past activity was a great one for linking, enjoying, repeat. Great. All right, Fatima says she could share something about famous people. Let's see, avocados are exported from Mexico.
Ooh, that's a great one. Avocados are big, making a big appearance today.
Yes. Let's see, what other sentences in the passive voice? I see people saying things like agriculture, food. Let's see. Death is celebrated every year from Myrna. Maybe that's from the Day of the Dead. Very nice. Let's see. Tamales are made in Nicaragua. Uh-oh, I'm starting to get hungry.
Yes.
Bananas are grown in Egypt.
I didn't know that.
And many varieties of potatoes are grown in Peru from Marco. So wonderful, great responses, everybody.
Yes, thank you. So I really like this as a teacher because I get to learn so much. And I have a pencil because I wrote down celebrate to add to my list of verbs. So thank you for that. And now we'll go on to our last activity for beginners. And we're going to talk a superlative, something that's commonly found in beginner textbooks. So for the setup, we're going to focus on superlatives, but also like activities and attractions for vacations. And all you need is a whiteboard. And for an interaction, we're going to have a small group debate, a very loose debate. You will see what I mean. So for the setup, I'm going to ask students for their help. I need your help. I'm planning on taking a vacation, but I haven't decided where to go. Can you help me decide, or can you convince me where to go on vacation? So that's the topic for this class, but we have a lot of other topics we can ask for input on. So we can say, help me decide where to live. Maybe I'm new to the town or country. What phone or what car to buy, which sports team to support, where to shop, the best type of pet to get. So a lot of ways you can adapt this to what your students are learning and their vocabulary. And some students will be ready to get started right away, but you can also set them up for success, especially with a mixed level group, by brainstorming some of the vocab to use, some of the categories to cover. So I don't want my students to say, oh, the best this, the best that, the best, the best, the best. I want them to say the most beautiful, the least expensive, the nicest. So we can brainstorm those adjectives. And because it's vacation, I can also focus my students and have them talk about typical vacation topics like what to eat, where to shop, activities to do, if it's safe, the type of people where you will travel. So this is a great step to add when you have mixed level students or students who are sometimes a little more shy or reluctant to participate. And for this next part, we see a couple of examples, but what we'll have students do in groups is just first decide on what country or town, city to talk about. And so once they decide, obviously we're talking about Turkey and Istanbul. So before they work together, I'm going to have students write individually. This is important because it helps ensure that one student doesn't do all the work. And it's also helpful for the next step. So our students wrote 5 sentences about the place. And now in this small group of 4, they need to take their 20 sentences and combine them into a list of 10. So what this does, they can help each other correct. They can also organize their sentences by order of persuasiveness. So we have critical thinking. If they know me as their teacher, they're definitely going to tell me about the best and most delicious food before they talk about sports, for example. So this gives them a chance to correct sentences, but also use some critical thinking and choosing the most persuasive sentences. So once they have their list, we are going to just have the groups present one point at a time, back and forth. So 2 groups, this works really well for a small class. And each group says a sentence. The teacher can decide for that round which place they're most interested in. If you have a large class, you can model this with two groups, and then have the other class work together. So two groups present to another group, and they're the ones who decide rather than the teacher voting. And then for a recap, we can ask students to vote on where they'd like to go based on all of the information that they heard. And a great extension for this that gets a lot of mileage out of the activity is if the student said, oh, I chose Mexico City, that's where I want to go, we can get them to do some research and create a travel plan using another familiar beginner grammar like be going to. So I'm going to go to Mexico City for my vacation. And then they can repeat things they learned from each other. So let's take one last look at the Learn framework. And so again, this links students' knowledge to the grammar because they're talking about a place they're familiar with. Hopefully it's enjoyable. There's lots of repetition because they wrote so many sentences, they had to combine them, they have to listen to the other sentences and what other groups say so they can make a choice. And there's probably some novelty of trying to see if you can get your teacher to do something. You can make it much smaller scale, like, oh, where should I have lunch today? And that's something you can actually do and one group can actually win. But again, so the repeating part is when students share their sentences and narrow down. And the first time I did this activity in my class, I didn't have this incorporated. And then I reflected and made some changes to make the activity a little bit better. So that's our last activity. Let's recap. So we talked about 4 activity rumor mill for talking about reported speech, usually with advanced students. We talked about where was it made, looking at our clothing for passive voice and sharing fun facts with the passive voice. And we also did convince me, persuading someone to do something by using superlatives. So which activity are you most excited to try?
Yeah, what do you think, everybody? Which of these great activities would you like to try? Let's see. I saw one person who said convince me would be a great activity for beginners. Great. What other activities would you like? Akash says convince me as well. The rumor mill from Fatima. Where was it made is great. One participant shares. Convince me and rumor mill from Pat Salgado. Let's see. Micah says rumor mill. We've been working on reported speech, so this will be a great one to try out soon.
Oh, great.
And Adnan says, I liked rumor mill and fun facts. So a lot of people are saying all different types of activities. And of course, a few people are saying that they hope to try all of them as well. So it sounds great. We're so happy to hear all of that, everybody.
Yes, thank you guys. And I noticed too, like convince me is a popular one, and you do not have to limit that to superlatives. Like it works really well with the present perfect. Convince me to hire you and tell me about your experience using the present perfect. So you can take a step back from my specific examples and see what other topics and what other grammar fits in nicely. And I'll just share a quick reference to cite. The Learn framework came from this blog post, the 6 tricks to making learning sticky. So you can read this on the Ning website if you want to review it again. And I hope these ideas and activities are fun for you and your students. And thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Stephanie, for sharing all of those really great activities. I think all of us are really have a better understanding of ways that we can implement or adapt activities that are memorable or sticky for our students. So thank you so much. I know lots of people will be trying these out very, very soon. And we'd also like to thank you, our audience, for your lively engagement and participation today. All of your great questions, comments, and ideas were really helpful and helped our webinar to be even better. We hope to continue the conversation with you through social media and on our Ning. And we also hope that you'll share ideas and thoughts with your colleagues or with viewing groups or your friends after the session ends. So thanks, everyone.